Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
John Riggio, our pro tennis player, architect, author, and movie star. Yeah, he's got lots of stories, an amazing career, amazing family man, and he's always here inspiring so many, along with his latest book, and hopefully it's only one of many. So, hi and welcome. For those that don't know a little bit about the man of the hour, John, tell us.
Hello, how are you? My name is John Riggio. I usually talk about my architect profession, but I'd like to talk about stories from years ago when I was a tennis pro. And last year, in the year 2025, I wrote a book about the whole story. It's right here. My Own Court, the life story of tennis legend John Riggio. It includes tennis stories. It has stories of my professional career too in
Mm-hmm.
here. It's very good. It starts with when I was young and goes all the way to the present time. And the reason why he says the word tennis legend is because in tennis, there's a technical term. If you win a certain number of tournaments, you could be considered a tennis legend, and that is really why the word legend is in there. It's an official term they already he gave me years and years ago when I was playing tennis. Um, so the last few weeks I was talking about a lot of celebrities, things like that. I think
Uh-huh.
today I'm going to talk about a few tennis tips.
Great.
Some of them are interesting. I think just to start off, one of them is when you play tennis. Has such amazing concentration to play tennis that you really have to meditate to play really excellent. You have to really take like maybe a half hour, 40 minutes to sit down by yourself and concentrate. You really have to visualize the whole game, going through from serving the ball, following up on the serve, how to play around the court, remembering all those different things of how to play tennis to win the match, to keep your strategy going. You really have to take those minutes in time to really concentrate and go through both serving the ball and how to hit the passing ball to also how you're going to return the ball from different players. How if they're serving the ball very fast, if they're serving the ball a little slower, maybe a lot of top spin, and then how you're going to hit the ball there and you're going to turn the um, game from really returning the ball to then going where you are in control of the game and winning the points to win the match. And when I was at a young age there, in middle school and high school, I used to really take some time in the library to meditate before I had these matches later in the afternoon. So I used to take that time to really think about my game. I even at that time I even used to have these like rubber bands. I used to put these rubber bands on my finger and you go like this with your rubber bands and it strengthens your hands to hold a tennis racket.
Interesting.
And all those little improvements do make a difference in your playing. It's the thing with the rubber bands is somewhat standard. It's not something I invented. It was something I was taught by my coach on how to strengthen my hands, and it's a somewhat a standard in tennis. All those things and then also there was before the meditation there was also light weights. I always used to work out with light weights. They told me not to work out with more than 30 pounds of weights, but I did work out with weights that are lighter than 30 pounds, and that was a lot of times was to keep my strength out of my arms so I could serve over and over again. You have to serve so many times per game during a match. A lot of times I play even two matches,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to keep your muscles strong. So you did have to do light weights. Heavy weights are no good. That's the only problem. You don't want to get past 30 pounds. Then you're going to tighten your muscles. You're going to build fat on your muscles, and you're going to slow down. And then you're going to have also a thing of trying to push the ball.
Okay.
You want to keep a very youthful swing of your arm, swinging your arm from your shoulder. Say like you would throw a baseball when you're young. You would throw the ball from your shoulder. That's the exact same way you would use the racket. Yes, and keeping all those things were really very important. Um, I think as far as also as far as exercise is concerned, I used to
Mm-hmm.
do some jogging. I used to jog 4 to 6 miles per week.
Bless
Of
you.
course, you do the basic things like 100 push-ups, like
The
100
basics.
up.
Basic is 100 push-ups in your world. Yeah.
And I was just like bicycling. I those bicycling
Yeah.
they kind of have very similar because you speed up very quick and then you would stop, and then you speed up very quick and you'd stop. The bicycling is very good exercise too to play tennis. You're not constantly moving your legs, you're starting, you're stopping, and that is also very good. I used to do bicycling too. That was also a very good exercise that went along with tennis. And I think as far as concentration is concerned, meditating is good, but I think to get your mind onto playing your own game, it turns out that watching motorcycle racing is a good influence. Just by chance, when I was younger, I used to watch motorcycle racing on television.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was even going over to my relative's house sometimes, and they'd have the TV on, and I flipped to the channels. And they had the motorcycle racing on. They used to have the FIM racing, the super bikes. I used to watch that a lot when I was younger. It turns out that's a very good influence. But if you like to watch baseball, football, American football, the only problem with that is it is a team sport. It isn't very good to influence you from start to end. Of course, I would watch tennis on television too when I was younger. I used to see myself on television sometimes too. I remember once at one of my relatives' house, I brought my camera. My mother suggested to bring my camera, and when I see myself on TV to take the picture, and because my relative he had the cable vision and with the that special channel that had all the best sports, so that was one interesting thing that was going on at that time too. Um, But with the motorcycle racing, I used to watch that, and one basic lesson for that is to start off, try to get ahead, and go all the way to the end of the race. The same as in tennis, you start to get ahead, get one game or two games ahead on your opponent, and then you have to go and concentrate to keep the lead to win, not to let them come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in tennis, there's always a chance the opponent could change his strategy, change his racket, and he can make a comeback and he can beat you in the match. So you have to really stay ahead of the game and play from the start to the end to win. There's always, as far as strategy, as far as you playing, if you get behind, changing your strategy, things like that is a similar idea. But the idea is just to try to get ahead and keep hold of the game and win the game. And I think one interesting thing also that was happening in tennis, which is really very interesting. I don't know if anyone has a knowledge of this before, but there is some very interesting thing that tennis isn't a stadium sport.
Okay.
And I think like with anyone playing a sport,
Mm.
people some sports are a little particular. You can't necessarily play every sport. There are all kinds of different tripwires and things involved with playing sports. You so with this thing about playing in a stadium, when I was younger, they told me to go to a stadium a few times to play tennis. I went right there. I didn't care. I didn't listen. You know, if someone told me it's not a stadium sport, they told me to go there, I would just go there to play anyway. Uh, they could have very possibly made me the stadium tennis player where I go there and I play in a stadium all the time. It was up to them. But just by chance, it turns out that talking to different teams around the world, particularly Tony Roach told me that tennis is not a stadium sport from Australia. Some other people had told me that tennis is not a stadium sport. Ross Perot was saying he's not a stadium sport either. And so I believe what they told me. A tennis center is okay. The tennis bubble is good. Outdoor tennis center is okay. And but the strangest thing with playing in a stadium is there seems to have been an interesting side effect that seems to have taken place. One of them, people were getting hit in the head with a baseball bat. Some interesting stories was when I was younger and they started building those stadiums at the National Tennis Center in Flushing, New York. The New York Mets across the way were saying the same thing that tennis is not a stadium sport. They had some objection to the seats were blue color that they made. They did not like them imitating baseball. And there was a big thing about tennis trying to imitate baseball, American baseball, and by doing that, well, they thought they were really causing a problem. I was there just observing some of those things with things happening with the stadiums getting constructed and the blue seat problem, things like that. I think some small adjustments so they wouldn't think that they're imitating American baseball. Maybe they could have green seats or something like that, yellow seats. But I think some they were very interesting things, and there was this strange coincidence of people either even going to the tennis stadium as a spectator or playing in the stadium as a tennis player could end up getting hit in the head with a baseball bat or something else. Down here in the recreational tennis, I was playing, and I just noticed there was one player that he always goes to the US Open every year, and just by chance, we're playing on the tennis courts, and there's like an 8-year-old girl comes onto the tennis court with a soccer ball. It's like a kid soccer ball. She hits the ball up in the air, and it hits him right in the top of the head with the ball. I mean, I don't want to say coincidence, knowing that people go to the U.S. Open and then they end up getting hit in the head with the baseball bat or a soccer ball or something. Somehow it was the strangest coincidence. And so that was a really very interesting thing. Um, I think as far as baseball is concerned, with baseball bats and everything, there's a lot of baseball bats that are around to tennis playing anyway. I described from previous shows. I knew some different baseball players from the New York Mets. One of them was Lenny Dykstra. Have you ever heard of Lenny Dykstra from the Mets years ago, 1986?
No, no, no.
Okay, yeah, he was
I know
there
Doc
for.
Gooden. I just hosted an event with him.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. He was on the same team, yes. He was there. Sure, a lot of the baseball players, they used to have their baseball bats, their whole bag of baseball bats to play. They used to like to play some pro tennis. They were into playing pro tennis. And he's another player that used to play some pro tennis with me too. Used to come to my court and play pro tennis and things like that. Um, and just by chance, he even was involved with some things on my professional work. He called me. He had a few jobs because he was doing some real estate investing, some rentals and things like that. So he had called me years later about that too. I had worked with some people that already knew him in the area in New York City.
Okay.
That's just a very interesting story.
Hmm.
And so that was interesting. I think just recently, I was talking about some of my playing years, and I think going back to Sun East, as far as business is concerned, big business, stadiums, was really one backer of this stadium, or what they were starting to call the sport complex. Since my sponsor wanted to build this stadium over in the Polo Grounds in Manhattan, there's a lot of peer pressure to build the stadium.
Yeah.
Even though we like the outdoor courts, we like the tennis bubble. A lot of people want a retractable bubble you could take down and move it and put it back up. There was a lot of peer pressure to build a stadium, and as they developed the idea of the stadium, they said they want lockers and all kinds of things for the sponsors and viewing areas. The definition of the stadium started to come out more like a tennis,
Mm-hmm.
multi-sport tennis center. And so the backers of the financial part of this, one of them who was there was really JP Morgan Jr.
Ah.
And he came down to the Sutton East Tennis Center and I talked to him. I remember one or more occasions he was there. And he was well aware of my tennis career. He was saying very clearly to me that my tennis playing was the best sport player they've ever had in the history of their players. They've had all kinds of different sport players. They sponsored and backed and might have been involved with wanting to make tennis stadiums, things like that. I was their number one best sport player, most profitable sport player, generated the most money in their whole history. So that was really an amazing thing. And so not only that, but JP Morgan Jr. was also part of a large financial company with the Chase Manhattan Bank. And they were the one that were willing to back that stadium, put their name on it, put Chase Bank on the stadium. So that is really one interesting thing was the financial situation. And they that was very good. And I think that was a very good experience. I had met him in person there, and I think everything was going really good. But so those were some interesting things that were happening at the tennis and the tennis center. And I think there are some amazing things that were going on with tennis. Um, so I think the story with the tennis stadiums and the tennis stadiums that they are not really preferred to play tennis in, which is very interesting. I think the one thing factor about the tennis stadiums also is the tennis stadiums building them a certain way where they have like a home team and a visiting team is a little different because in tennis is more like boxing, what I'm told. That boxing has a similar type of setup. But the thing about boxing also, I know from my father, my grandfather, he used to sponsor some boxers. One of them was Rocky Marciano. I was not going to pronounce. And the word from how boxing used to work came down to me when at a young age, because when my father was explaining to me about tennis playing, about playing honest, and I was told by my father and also by other people as I got older that boxing works very similar to tennis because there's one player. The idea is to continue winning. You see boxers a lot of times in their career, they might not lose any matches of boxing. They might only lose one bout of a boxing, and then they might retire, and that's it. So they would have a streak of winning, and that is based on them playing. I think some of it has to get based on that it's a little dangerous to play sports. There's high risks involved with playing sports too. I explained some of that in my book and explained that too. And so the sport is very similar. So with tennis, the idea of playing as a home team or visiting team isn't really the goal of playing tennis. A lot of it has to do with something like you would say you're playing king of the court. If you're winning, the players come to you. If you start to dip down closer to 50% wins, a lot of times they offer you go on the road. You could travel around. They had very interesting things back then. You can travel around and they give you a credit of $25,000 a year to do that. And some players might not physically get the dollars. Some people do get the dollars. I don't know the particulars about why that's like that. Um, some people traveling from far away countries got a little more as far as that yearly amount of money credit to get through your matches and things like that. But I think that has to do with also going and playing different players. So you can have the option to go on the road. A lot of times it has to do with that you're no longer the center of attention, or that's the only opportunity you get is to go on the road. It depends. They used to give me those different opportunities depending on where I was in my tennis playing in between contracts, things like that. Even though I was winning at one point, I did not come down in my rankings. They were still giving me some offers of maybe going and traveling around. So the idea of that is goes against more like a stadium idea where you have a home team. So you don't have really a home team idea or an away team. And I think the idea of having it where you play the best and the players come to you was really my great advantage. The other way of playing is completely different. A team organization, playing uh, where the team travels. I think everyone plays like little league sports where there's a team, you travel, you go to the other neighborhood, you go to their field to play. And that is not really the same idea as tennis. So the whole thing with the stadium started to bring a lot of frustrations with people, especially at years that I was playing, that there was a lot of frustrations with the tennis stadiums. And I think one interesting thing about this tennis stadiums was at the Flushing Park where I played,
Oh, I
they
love that.
had these big lawsuits. So what happened is they had did have one stadium constructed. Nothing was constructed. Most of the playing was going on in this green building. They had a green building. It used to be used to have road salt was in there, and they converted it over. And what happened is they had a big lawsuit over the U.S. Open with me with 1987 U.S. Open. And that gave them, the United States of America received an award of $400 million. So they asked me my opinion, and my opinion was to build, say, two or three courts, maybe up to six courts, and then have like one of those buildings where they have lockers, toilets, snacks, water, things like that, and next to the courts, and you build them throughout like the New York area. That was my idea. So everyone can play. You have a lot of places to play. People can meet at the different courts, and you have the basic facilities there. It isn't just like an open court with nothing around. But their idea, as the lawsuit went through, and one senator that was in the lawsuit was Senator Rangel, has passed away, but he was one of the senators that was involved with that court case, and it was a successful court case against them. And the award money ended up in negotiation to build more stadiums. Now, what the I saw the interesting thing was building more stadiums. They sort of were doing something sort of instigating the problem worse because then now they have more stadiums and more potential problems with the U.S. Open tournament, and it didn't include more people. I think the idea of the lawsuit too was that they wanted to include more people, more fairness, have higher level tennis, that it wasn't really just an amateur tournament. Years previous, it was listed as an amateur tournament. It's still listed the way in the internet. And so this idea of building more stadiums instigated the problem worse and didn't really solve the problem. So even though all of that money was obtained and they did make those improvements, it didn't really solve the root cause of what the lawsuit was about wanting me to pass through the US Open playing it, and that was from based on a contract that I had signed. I really put a pen on a contract with my coach, Anthony Cambria, and that's how that whole lawsuit really came to root, was from that problem. So by ending up building more stadiums, more frustration, more problems, didn't so the result of the lawsuit did not solve the problems entirely. It gave a nice bigger show, but that is really what had happened. So I think what happened because of that reason too is the peer pressure to build stadiums, more stadiums, build another stadium in the Polo Grounds that they already started,
Wow.
was because of that reason. So this, in my generation, the craze to build stadiums and not really just make a better tennis center, which
Mm-hmm.
most people wanted, was what was taking place. And I think the other problem with the tennis stadiums was what I was saying is the tennis stadiums were perceived as making fun of American baseball. It was not very good. The strange phenomenon of people getting hit in the head if they go to the tennis stadium, which isn't too funny. And
Yeah.
th that is really what was happening in my generation. And they knew by putting me there on court 33 that I would see the problems. And they were hoping that by me there also, that with my great playing, that more things would get solved. Uh, Overall, things did get solved. And since I generated a lot of money, they could just buy a new tennis center, make a new tennis center. But the interesting thing as far as the Flushing Meadows with the tennis stadiums was really a very interesting situation that had took place, and that resulted in that big lawsuit, and and the result was really to improve even more stadiums in that location. So I'm really just a player. I'm observing what's happening. I'm told what's going on. They found a new place for me to play. And the story of what's going on with the tennis center um, was exactly what you would see today with the tennis stadiums, improved situation as far as their facilities are concerned. And the improved facilities, years later, ended up going back and playing in the new indoor courts that they had made. Just by chance. I wasn't thinking about my old days. I was just thinking about starting to play recreational tennis. I signed up for some doubles. I learned some valuable things there. I was playing with some people that were so amazingly old, 90 years old. One guy on the court was 98 years old, still could hit the ball over the net playing doubles. And I learned some interesting things there. Some players, they're like talking to some players that are over 85 years old, but they did not look very old. Tennis kept them in very good shape. And so playing back there, I wasn't thinking about my old days. I was just thinking about the present time, getting my weight down, keeping myself in shape. And I was back there, and it was a very interesting story. Slowly and slowly, I started remembering all those details of long ago playing. That was really what was happening. And I noticed back then too, I got some very interesting inside story by playing there. They're telling me that they have these little kids that are in the USTA that are signed up, and they have them go walk in the stadium and play in the stadium for some reason. I don't know why. It's a very interesting story what was going on with those stadiums. I couldn't really figure it out. A lot of people were talking foul that they were just causing a problem, and that's the facts of what was happening. I really wasn't the one to make the final determination on anything happening there, and that's about it. So that is really amazing story of what was going on with the tennis stadiums, and I got all kinds of different views of the situation going to the Polo Ground Stadium, the Chase Stadium they wanted to build there, direct right there from JP Morgan Jr. talking to me at the tennis court and telling me all very interesting insights about what's going on with the stadium and my tennis playing and everything like that.
And by the way, what tennis stadium? What was the other one? What was it called? Not the one. I told you my parents were used to always hang out there. What's the? Is it the one in Queens?
Forest Hills?
Forest Hill. That's the other one. That's still there. Do people still play tennis there, or is that our concert venue now?
They play tennis there? Yes, they had the tennis there years ago. I think it was originally built to play baseball.
Oh wow.
And from I was told from the Australian team, they sort of didn't like playing in the stadium. They didn't like
Okay.
this thing of going against American baseball. They really started to get into this thing. And this thing about getting hit in the head playing in the stadium was another thing that they didn't like. So that stadium there is sort of a problem. They didn't really care too much about it. They didn't like the controversy either.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe they couldn't figure. That's why I thought making the very nice tennis center, which everyone wanted. They wanted a two-story with maybe very nice grandstands on each side, one for visitor player, one for the home player, off-street parking, of course, bathroom, locker facilities, everything, and tennis, not tennis, television. Of course, you have to have all the different locations for the television cameras. That is the top tennis, to have everything on television so you can watch it right at home.
My goodness. All right. Wow. And now you continue to be active, play tennis. You also have clinics. Where do you mostly play tennis now? Is it in New Jersey or do you still come out here?
No, I'm playing in New Jersey. I'm playing right over here in central New Jersey. I have right now two locations. They seem to change over the years. Sometimes they renovate them and I have to
Okay.
move to another location and things like that. So I have two locations over here in central Jersey. They're really nice. It's okay to teach tennis here. You don't need special permits or anything. And there's a lot of people coming, signing up to my meetup every week, all new players, and everything is going really good. They're buying my book too. I've been selling them the book. They really like reading it. They're very impressed with it. I had a lot of excellent reviews from them.
Interesting. Well, we are out of time. We've got to do a full show. I love this. And on time today, plenty of time to speak. How did you kind of want to end off for our show today, John?
Sure, of course. I have my main webpage is www.johnriggio.com. I'm also on X and I'm on Facebook, John Riggio Pro Tennis Player. There you find all my videos. I'm on YouTube too with a complete collection of the videos. And you have photographs, pictures on my web pages. You'll really like it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here as always. How do we pick up a copy of the book as well?
Sure, all you do is just go online. You can get it at Barnes& and Noble, Amazon. You can get it at Kobo, Thrift Books. Anywhere online, you get the ebook, the paperback, or the hard copy.
Great. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll chat again next week. Always a pleasure seeing you, John, and thank you for sharing more stories, as
Thanks
always.
a lot, Jules. Good to see you.
Bye,
Bye.
sweetheart. You too. See ya.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.